We don't serve people like you." The words hit harder than expected. Jackson stood frozen at the counter. His coat was faded, torn at the elbow. His boots cracked. His face shadowed by a worn beanie. He looked like someone who hadn't had a warm bed in days. Chad, the cafe manager, didn't blink. His voice was cold, practiced. "There's a hygiene standard here. Please leave." No one looked up. The baristas behind the counter stayed silent. Customers glanced, then quickly turned back to their screens. Jackson pulled out a wrinkled $5 bill. "I just want a regular coffee. That's enough, right?" Chad didn't even look at the money. "There's a convenience store down the block. Try there." Jackson's hand trembled slightly as he tucked the bill away. He turned, walked out slowly into the evening wind. No one knew. The man they'd just turned away was Jackson Miller, the founder of the roast place. Jackson knew what it felt like to be ignored, to be hungry, to be invisible. He grew up in a one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. 4 kids, 1 mother. She worked nights cleaning offices and days folding shirts at a laundromat. Dinner was peanut butter on old toast. Sometimes, just the smell of food from the hallway. At 9, he started delivering newspapers. Rain, snow, it didn't matter. He'd wrap the papers in plastic bags and pedal until his legs went numb. On weekends, he collected bottles. 50 cents meant a sandwich. $1 meant lunch for his little sister. His shoes always had holes. His notebooks were passed down from 3 grades above. But he never felt poor at home. His mother made sure of that. She'd smile, brush his hair, and say, "You don't need much to have worth." Years later, Jackson still carried those words, but standing outside his own cafe, empty-handed. He wondered if anyone still believed them. The first cafe opened with barely enough chairs, second-hand tables, mismatched mugs. But on the wall, behind the counter, hung a wooden sign. "Coffee is meant to be shared." Jackson carved the letters himself. Not fancy, not polished, just honest. People came. Not just for the coffee, but for what the space gave them. Warmth, quiet, safety. A bus driver on break. A teenage mom with a stroller. A man who always sat by the window counting coins, never asked for much. No one was rushed. No one was judged. Every free refill was a message. You matter, even if the world says otherwise. Jackson believed in that a simple cup placed gently on the table could tell someone they weren't alone. Now, watching his cafe from across the street, he wondered when the sign was taken down, and why no one seemed to miss it. She couldn't have been more than 24, tidy ponytail, tired eyes, hands moving fast but gentle. Emma slid a small bag across the counter. Inside, a muffin, yesterday's batch. She whispered to the man with the worn coat, "Here, it's still good." He smiled, grateful, but before he could say thank you, a voice cut through the hum. "Emma!" Chad marched over, jaw clenched. "You're not here to give things away. That's theft." Emma looked down. "I don't care," he snapped. "Do it again, and you're done here." The cafe fell quiet for a second. No one stepped in. No one met her eyes, except one man sitting by the window, half hidden in shadow. He saw everything. He clenched his jaw, because the girl Chad humiliated was the only person still holding on to what the roast place once stood for. A man in dusty work boots stepped inside, hard hat in hand, sweat on his collar. He walked up politely. "Just a coffee. Small," he said, voice low. Chad barely looked at him. "We're about to clean the kitchen. Come back in an hour." The kitchen wasn't closing. The machines were still humming. The man nodded quietly. He turned around and left, coffeeless. Minutes later, a woman in heels stepped in. Chad rushed to greet her. "Miss Holloway, your latte's ready. I saved your favorite table." In the corner, Emma wiped down trays. Behind her, Sarah, young, pale, approached with hesitation. "My daughter's sick. I need to leave a bit early today." Chad didn't blink. "Either stay, or don't bother coming back tomorrow." She paused, then tied her apron tighter. Jackson saw it all, from his quiet seat. The imbalance, the quiet fear and the way dignity was being traded for tips and survival. Hoy Chat GPT. Jackson sat still, watching the steam rise from someone else's cup, and suddenly he was 10 again, standing beside his mother in a small diner. She held a few crumpled bills, hands shaking slightly. Her voice was soft. "1 bowl of soup, please. We'll share." The waiter glanced at the money, then shook his head. "No sharing allowed. 1 order per person." They left without eating. Outside it had started to snow. That night Jackson promised himself, if he ever built something, even a food cart, it would be a place where no one felt small. That promise became the roast place. Not a business, a refuge, a room where dignity came free with every cup. But now, seeing people turned away from his own walls, he wondered if he'd failed. Not just the people outside, but the woman who once left hungry, holding his hand. The café looked the same. Wooden counters, warm lighting. But the soul felt missing. Jackson watched the room with quiet eyes. People came in, placed orders, left. No warmth, no glances, just routine. He thought about the sign, the one he carved with blistered hands. "Coffee is meant to be shared." Was that still true here? He glanced at the staff. Tired. Tight smiles. No one spoke unless they had to. His fingers curled slightly on the table. Not in anger, but doubt. Had he built something that outgrew its own heart? Had growth turned into greed? He wasn't sure when it changed. Maybe it didn't happen all at once. Maybe it faded, quietly, while he was too busy expanding, too far to feel it. And for the first time in years, Jackson asked himself a question he wasn't sure he wanted the answer to. Did I let this happen? The next morning, Jackson came back. Same coat, same beanie. He blended into the sidewalk like part of the pavement. He didn't enter right away, just sat across the street on a cold bench, holding a cheap phone with cracked edges. Every 10 minutes he took notes, not names, behaviors. Who was served? Who was ignored? How long someone waited? Who smiled? Who didn't? By day 3, he had a pattern. The wealthy were greeted. The rest were filtered out, subtly but surely. He stepped in only once each day, ordering the same small black coffee. No one remembered his face, or maybe they didn't care to, but Jackson remembered every detail, every glance, every dismissal. Each visit raised a new question. How far had this place drifted? And how much of that drift was his fault? Behind the counter, tucked between invoices and shift schedules, was a slim black notebook. Unmarked, ordinary, but not harmless. Jackson spotted it when Chad carelessly left it open. He watched from his usual corner, still invisible. Inside, a list. Handwritten names, short notes. Too loud. Cheap clothes. Weird smell. Takes up space. Next to each, a red underline. Some were regulars Jackson used to know by face. Now they were reduced to traits, labels, warnings. Chad flipped through the pages with calm precision. No service. Limited seating. Encourage takeout, he muttered to a trainee. These people don't match our brand image. Jackson felt his chest tighten, not from surprise, but from the sharp, quiet shame that this list existed in a place he built. A list that said, without saying it, "You're not welcome here." A man walked in, shirt damp with sweat. He didn't ask for coffee, just water. Emma filled a paper cup and handed it over without hesitation. "Here you go," she said softly. He nodded, grateful, and stepped outside. Chad saw the whole thing. He waited until the rush quieted, then pulled Emma aside near the sink. "No more freebies," he snapped. "This is a business, not a charity." Emma stayed quiet. "You're too emotional," he added, voice low but sharp. "That kind of softness gets people fired." Her eyes dropped to the floor. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself. She just nodded, barely. Jackson, watching from the back, clenched his jaw. The girl who gave a stranger a sip of water was now one mistake away from losing her job, and not a single coworker looked up. Fear had taught them silence. It started with a missing sticker. The bright blue sign that once read "Senior Discount 20% off" was gone from the register. Jackson noticed first. Then a college kid asked about the student rate. Chad shrugged. "Not available at this location anymore." No notice, no explanation. The changes came quiet, one by one. Punch cards for low-income families? Discontinued. Morning specials for early workers? Removed from the board. Chad called it streamlining. "Focus on premium service," he said. "No need to attract people who only buy drip coffee." Jackson listened from the corner table. His coffee tasted bitterer that day. The brand he once built on inclusion was slowly being reshaped into a filter, one that let only certain people through. No one protested, no one even noticed, except him, and the people now walking past the café instead of walking in. It was almost 3 p.m. The shift was ending, and Rachel had already untied her apron. Her phone buzzed, a reminder to pick up her son from daycare. Chad called her over. "Melissa called in sick. I need you to stay until close." I can't today," Rachel said gently. "I have no one else to watch my boy." Chad didn't flinch. "You want this job or not? I've got a stack of applications from people who don't complain." Rachel hesitated, then slowly retied her apron, eyes fixed on the floor. Jackson watched from near the hallway. The espresso machine hissed behind them. No one said a word. He looked around. Every employee moved faster when Chad was near. Smiles disappeared. Posture changed. This wasn't a cafe anymore. It was a place where kindness cost too much, and silence was the only way to keep your paycheck. Jackson stopped just watching. He started recording. His phone stayed low in his lap, camera aimed through the small gap between salt and sugar jars. Photos of tip jars half empty. Audio clips of Chad's threats clipped and clear. He noted timestamps, tracked customer treatment, logged who was asked to leave and who got extra foam without asking. Each day, the file on his phone grew longer. Each night, he reviewed it, eyes sharp, jaw tight. He accessed the internal system, too. As the owner, he still had admin access. Reports didn't match receipts. Discount lines were gone. Wage records looked altered. Jackson wasn't angry. Not yet. He was focused. Something was building. Not just inside the cafe, but inside him. And soon, someone was going to feel what it was like to be seen clearly. It started with a missing deposit. A day's cash sales weren't logged. Jackson checked twice, then 3 times. He compared the internal dashboard with his own archived reports. Margins were inflated. Bonus expenses were listed. None approved. A second spreadsheet surfaced, hidden in a password-protected folder buried deep. Same sales totals, different breakdowns. Discounts erased. Labor hours shortened. Profit up on paper. Jackson dug deeper. Every month showed similar gaps. Thousands missing, all unaccounted for. Chad wasn't just cruel, he was clever, and he was stealing. Jackson sat back staring at the screen. The cafe didn't just drift off course, it had been hijacked. This wasn't mismanagement, it was manipulation, designed to make the place look better while quietly bleeding it from the inside. A twist was forming, but the ending, that part, Jackson would write himself. The subject line read, "Expansion Opportunity, Premium Clientele Only." Jackson opened the forwarded email, fingers steady, breath thin. It was from Chad, sent to a private investor group. He pitched a plan to franchise the roast place, but with a twist. No community board, no discount days, no low-budget branding, just high-end decor. Selective seating, targeting aspirational customers only. He wrote, "The brand has legacy credibility, but it's time we reposition it. No more free refills or charity tokens. This is coffee for people who belong." Jackson stared at the words. His chest tightened. The cafe built to serve the forgotten was being groomed to exclude them. The very thing he once stood against was being sold under his own name. The idea was absurd. But there it was, in black and white, the soul of the roast place. On the table, with a price tag. Emma handed a muffin to a teenage boy in a torn hoodie. No charge, no receipt, just a quiet gesture. He nodded, eyes wide, and slipped out the door. From behind the counter, Chad watched. The next morning, a new camera appeared. Mounted low, aimed straight at Emma's station. He didn't mention it. Didn't have to. Later that day, she found a note taped inside the break room locker. "Second strike, next one's your last." Jackson noticed how her smile faded after that. She moved quieter, looked down more. Still kind, but cautious. She gave less, watched her corners. The warmth in her hands hadn't disappeared. It was just hidden behind fear. He knew the signs. Emma wasn't just at risk of being fired. She was being hunted for doing the one thing the cafe used to celebrate, for showing care, in a place that was once built on it. It was tucked inside a drawer beneath stacks of payroll sheets, a small, leather-bound notebook, unlabeled, worn at the edges. Jackson opened it slowly. Inside, names, all staff, all marked, each with short notes beside them, easily influenced. Low ambition, submissive. Then he saw it, Emma Parker underline, bold red, too emotional, potential disruptor, remove within 30 days. His fingers gripped the page. The handwriting was unmistakably Chad's. There were others, too. Notes like, too soft, asks too many questions, gives freebies. Next to some names, X marks, fired. This wasn't management. This was quiet erasure. He stared at Emma's name, not for what it said, but for what it meant. Her kindness wasn't just disapproved of, it was officially targeted, and Jackson realized, if he stayed silent any longer, he'd be complicit. The cafe was quiet after the lunch rush. Emma refilled the napkin holder, humming faintly to herself. Chad stood nearby, arms crossed, watching. Then he muttered, just loud enough for Jackson to hear, "She's emotional garbage. Doesn't belong in a real team." Emma froze, just for a second. Then she turned around, smiled politely, and walked away. She didn't defend herself, didn't flinch, just kept working, hands steady, back straight. Jackson sat in the far corner. He heard every word. His knuckles pressed white against the ceramic cup. There were no customers around. No noise to blur the insult, just the sharp sting of it hanging in the air. He said nothing. Not yet. But, inside him, something cracked. It wasn't just about Emma anymore. It was about every quiet person who'd ever been crushed for daring to care. They stood by the back exit, near the bins. The night shift had just ended. Steam rose from Emma's coffee cup, clutched between cold fingers. Jackson, still in disguise, asked quietly, "Why do you stay, after everything?" Emma looked down, took a slow breath. "My mom's sick. I'm her only caregiver." She paused. "This job pays just enough to keep the lights on." Then her voice softened. "But that's not the only reason." She pointed toward the cafe. "Years ago, when I couldn't get hired anywhere, this place gave me a chance. No judgment. Just room to breathe." Her eyes met his. "I stay because someone has to remember what this place was, what it meant." Jackson didn't answer. He couldn't, because in that moment he realized Emma wasn't weak. She was the only one still fighting for his dream. It was near closing. Most chairs were stacked. The lights dimmed. Emma moved from table to table, wiping each surface with slow, careful strokes, her shoulders heavy, her eyes tired. Jackson sat alone, hood low, watching. She paused at the last table, rested both hands on the cloth. A single tear dropped onto the wood, vanishing into the grain. She didn't wipe it, didn't hide it. She just kept going. That image locked itself in Jackson's mind. The quiet dignity of someone carrying more than anyone saw. And for him, something shifted. He'd built the roast place to protect people like her, people who gave more than they took. Now, that same place was wearing her down. He couldn't watch another day, couldn't stay silent. Jackson stood up slowly, and in his chest, one clear thought. It's time. At 10:42 p.m., Jackson opened his laptop. He logged in, not as himself, but through an old admin alias tied to corporate systems. Subject line, urgent staff meeting, strategic investor visit. He crafted it carefully. Formal tone, subtle pressure, a hint of opportunity. Potential expansion funding. Presence required. Be prepared to impress. He hit send. One click, and every employee at that location had it. Chad would see it first thing in the morning. He'd dress sharp, control the room, try to impress a ghost that didn't exist. Jackson closed the laptop and exhaled. Everything he'd seen, heard, recorded, was coming to a point. The timer had started. He had 10 hours until the meeting. 10 hours until truth stepped through the door. And Chad? He had no idea who was about to walk in. Chad stood in the back office, sleeves rolled, tie loose. He clicked through slides on his laptop, grinning. A gold-accented logo. Glossy tables, filtered lighting. Buzzwords everywhere. Elevated experience, premium audience, selective ambiance. In bold letters, one phrase. Redefining coffee culture, one class at a time. He rehearsed his pitch out loud. Within 6 months, no one walking in here will order a plain black coffee. We'll raise the floor. No discounts, no freeloaders, no clutter. He paused, smiled. No one poor will set foot in here again. He truly believed it. That luxury equaled value. That community diluted brand. Across the café, Emma arranged chairs, unaware. Jackson, not far behind her, quietly listened. What once started as warmth in a paper cup was now being rebranded into cold exclusivity. And Chad couldn't see. He wasn't pitching growth. He was selling rot in a polished box. By 10:20 a.m., the cafe was spotless. Counters wiped. Pastries aligned like display pieces. The staff-only door creaked open. Inside, the team stood shoulder to shoulder. No one spoke. Emma stood near the back, arms crossed tight. She bit her lip, eyes darting toward the door. Next to her, Tyler fiddled with a pen cap. Rachel checked her watch twice in 1 minute. The air felt thick, like something was about to break. Chad paced in front of the screen, rehearsing lines under his breath. He looked at his team like actors in a performance. Smile when he walks in. Keep it sharp, he muttered. The investor, no one had seen, no one had met. Jackson watched from the hallway, unseen. This wasn't a staff meeting. It was a silent countdown, and no one knew what was about to land. The door opened at 10:30 sharp. All eyes turned. Jackson walked in. Same tattered coat, scuffed boots, and quiet steps. He didn't smile. He didn't look around. He headed straight for the center of the room. Chad's jaw clenched. What is this? Security! 2 baristas froze, uncertain. Chad barked louder. Get him out, now! But Jackson didn't flinch. He reached into his pocket, not for a wallet, but a folded paper. He placed it on the counter beside the projector, then looked up. I won't be long. Chad stormed forward, finger raised. You don't belong here. This is a private. But Jackson cut him off with calm. Actually, I think I do. The room shifted. Whispers stirred. Emma narrowed her eyes, watching closely. The man no one saw coming had just walked into his own storm, and he wasn't backing down. The room held its breath. Jackson stood still, coat dusty, voice calm. I'm not an investor. I'm not a guest. My name is Jackson Miller, and I founded the roast place. Silence. Chad blinked, mouth slightly open. No, you... He looked around, searching for something solid to hold on to, but nothing came. Emma's eyes widened. Tyler dropped the pen in his hand. Even the espresso machine stopped hissing. Jackson slowly removed his beanie. Underneath, gray hair, tired eyes, but unmistakably him. He scanned the faces. Some confused, some ashamed, Some relieved. Then he looked at Chad. "Before we talk about your future here," he said, "I think everyone deserves to know what you've done." And just like that, the power shifted. The room was no longer his. It was Jackson's. Jackson opened his laptop. One click, screen mirrored. The projector lit up the wall, brighter than Chad's forced smile. "Let's start here," Jackson said, voice even. "Slide 1, mismatched sales reports, 2 spreadsheets, 1 real, 1 doctored." Murmurs rippled. Slide 2, audio. Chad's voice, crystal clear. "Cut the cash report by 300. No one checks the drawer on Thursdays." Slide 3, email thread. Subject, rebrand proposal, eliminate discounts. Phrases in bold, "Poverty doesn't sell." "Turn this place into a space for people who matter." Slide 4, personal bonus logs, unauthorized, inflated, backdated, names erased, figures doubled. Chad's face went pale. That is not. Jackson didn't raise his voice. He just let the silence grow, let the shame settle in. Because the worst kind of spotlight is the one you turn on yourself and forget someone was watching all along. Chad stepped forward, face flushed, voice shaking beneath forced confidence. "You don't understand," he said. "I was under pressure. We had targets to meet. Deadlines. Rising costs." He gestured toward the screen, the numbers still glowing behind him. "I wasn't stealing. I was optimizing, streamlining the model. That's how business works now." No one moved. Emma crossed her arms. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Even Tyler, always silent, took a small step back from Chad's side. Chad's voice cracked. "I kept this place running when you were gone. Sure, I made hard calls, but I did what I had to." Jackson didn't blink. He let the words hang, let them echo, because everyone in that room knew this wasn't about efficiency. It was about greed, dressed up in excuses, and excuses don't save you when the truth is louder than your voice. Jackson turned from Chad, calm and clear. "But there's one person here who never forgot what this cafe was built for." He looked across the room, right at Emma. She didn't rewrite reports. She didn't chase investors or bonuses. She just showed up, day after day, tired, underpaid, disrespected, and still chose kindness. Emma blinked. A silence wrapped around her. Jackson took a breath. "She's the reason I still recognize this place. The soul of the roast place? It lives in her." Emma's lips parted, barely a whisper escaping. "I was just doing what felt right." Jackson nodded. "And that's why you should lead it." Gasps. Someone clapped. Soft, then louder. Because in that moment, Emma went from overlooked barista to the heartbeat of everything that mattered. Jackson stepped forward, voice steady, heart full. "As of today," he said, "Emma Parker is the new general manager of the roast place." For a moment, just stillness, then one clap, and then another, and then the room erupted. Emma stood frozen, eyes wide, mouth open but silent. Her co-workers smiled, real smiles, for the first time in months. Rachel hugged her. Tyler fist-bumped the air. And Chad? He stood pale, shoulders sunken, sweat at his collar. The room no longer looked at him. They'd stopped listening the moment Jackson named what they already knew in their hearts. Chad didn't speak. He couldn't. Because what collapsed wasn't just his role. It was the illusion that fear would always lead. Emma looked at Jackson, voice trembling. "Are you sure?" He smiled. "I've never been more sure of anything." The front door opened with a soft chime. 2 officers stepped in, calm and firm. The room quieted instantly. "Chad Whitmore?" one asked. He straightened, caught off guard. "Yeah, what's this about?" Jackson handed over a folder. "Financial fraud, payroll manipulation, attempted illegal sale of corporate property. All documented." Chad's face drained of color. "This is ridiculous. I'm the manager. I'll sue." The officer stepped closer. "You have the right to remain silent." Cuffs clicked. Chad flinched. The staff didn't. Not a word of protest. Not a glance of sympathy. As he was led out, he turned back one last time, but no one looked at him. They were looking at Emma, now standing where he used to stand. Justice didn't come in loud. It came in firm, quiet steps, and it came on time. The silence after Chad's arrest didn't last long. Lena, quiet for so long, stepped forward. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice didn't. He made us pay for broken cups out of our checks, docked hours for bathroom breaks, forced Rachel to close alone twice after 12-hour shifts. Others nodded. Tyler added, "He canceled our tips if we didn't hit his sales quota." Another voice, "He said sick days made us look weak." Emma stood in the center, overwhelmed. Not by the words, but by the sudden flood of truth. They weren't just speaking up. They were standing with her, one by one, breaking their silence. Not out of fear, but relief. Jackson watched from the edge of the room, and for the first time, the cafe didn't feel heavy. It felt like something was breathing again, together. The staff gathered near the counter. No one was rushing, no orders being shouted, just quiet, steady breath, like something long held had finally been let go. Jackson looked around the room. His gaze moved slowly, from Lena, still holding her apron, to Rachel, wiping a corner of her eye. He swallowed hard. "This cafe," he said softly, "was never built for profit first. It was built to welcome, to warm, to hold space for people who had none." A pause. "And today, it becomes that place again." Emma stood beside him, eyes wide, unsure. He gently nodded to her. She lowered her head, accepting the weight and the honor. No big applause this time, just hands resting on shoulders, just a silence that felt like home. From the street outside, the scent of coffee drifted out, but inside, something far stronger was brewing. Morning sun poured through the front windows, casting gold over every table. The line stretched to the door. A student scribbled notes between sips. A construction worker scrolled through his phone, boots dusty. Beside him, a woman in a sharp blazer laughed over a caramel latte. No reserved signs, no premium seating. Just people, different clothes, different stories, sharing space. The hum of voices mixed with the hiss of steam, the tap of keyboards, the occasional clink of ceramic mugs. On the wall behind the counter, an old wooden sign had returned. A cup of coffee, a moment of warmth, for anyone who walks in. Emma walked through the floor with ease. No clipboard, no headset, just a quiet smile, watchful, grounded. The cafe hadn't just recovered, it had come home. And this time, everyone had a seat at the table. Above the barista station, under a warm amber light, an old wooden board had been cleaned, polished, and hung once more. The edges still held scratches. The letters, hand-painted, slightly faded, but the message was clear as ever. Coffee is meant to be shared. A young couple paused as they read it. One smiled. The other whispered, "That's beautiful." An older man, sitting alone by the window, nodded quietly to himself. Emma caught the glance. She didn't say anything, just smiled back. The sign didn't announce change. It reminded everyone of what had always been true. It wasn't just decoration. It was a promise, a memory nailed into wood, a mission carved into routine. And as people came and went, cups filled and emptied. That quiet message stayed glowing, like a heartbeat on the wall. Next to the register sat a small wooden box, handwritten sign taped to the front. "Pay it forward coffee. Buy one, gift one." Emma had quietly launched the program 2 weeks earlier. No banners, no big announcement, just an option printed at the bottom of every receipt. "Would you like to leave a cup for someone else?" The response was overwhelming. Within a month, the roast place had given out over 500 cups. To delivery drivers, students short on cash, single moms, the elderly. Each time, the barista would nod gently and say, "Someone left this here for you." No questions, no forms, just kindness, brewed hot and handed over. Customers began looking forward to it. Some even left notes folded beside their receipt. And in that quiet ritual, the cafe had become more than a business again. It had become a chain of unseen hands, passing warmth forward. The bell above the door chimed softly, a sound no one turned to notice anymore. Victor stepped in. No suit, no sharp tie, just a torn jacket, frayed cuffs, and tired eyes. His hands trembled slightly as he removed a worn cap. He didn't look around, didn't expect to be recognized. Slowly, he approached the counter, voice barely more than a whisper. "Can I get a black coffee?" Emma looked up. Time seemed to pause for half a beat. There was no anger in her eyes, no satisfaction in seeing him small, only quiet recognition, the kind that sees beyond the past and into a moment of simple human need. Victor didn't ask for pity, only warmth, only one cup, and maybe a place to sit. Emma didn't pause long. She reached behind her, poured a fresh cup of black coffee, and placed it gently on the counter. Beside it, a warm roll, soft, wrapped in parchment. She looked at Victor, eyes steady, voice soft but certain. "Here," she said, "no charge." He hesitated, hands still. Emma leaned forward just slightly. "At this cafe," she added, "everyone deserves a chance to start again." Victor's throat moved, but no words came. He simply nodded, took the cup with both hands, and whispered a thank you that barely made it past his breath. He sat alone near this window. Steam rose from the cup like something sacred, and in that small, quiet moment, Grace walked back into the room, not loud, not proud, just present. From the far end of the cafe, Jackson watched. No words, no gesture, just a slow nod, barely noticeable, as he saw Victor cradle the warm cup between his palms. Jackson's eyes glistened, not from triumph, but from something deeper, recognition. Not of Victor, but of a truth he'd nearly forgotten, that justice wasn't always about punishment. Sometimes it was a quiet door left open for someone who finally understood the cold. He leaned back, letting the hum of conversation surround him. One child laughed nearby. A spoon clinked gently in a mug. In his heart, a sentence rose, soft as breath. Justice isn't about revenge. It's giving someone the chance to learn how to be human again. And that was more than enough. The espresso machine hissed softly in rhythm. Milk frothed, spoons stirred, and the gentle clatter of mugs kissed the tabletops. Near the back, a toddler giggled, grabbing at cookie crumbs while his father sipped his drink. An elderly woman shared her table with a student. They'd met that morning, but now spoke like old friends. No one rushed. No one was out of place. A man in a construction vest held the door open for a woman in heels. She thanked him with a nod. No walls between them. Every corner carried warmth, not just from the coffee, but from the way people looked at each other, like they belonged here, exactly as they were. The cafe wasn't just busy, it was alive. Soft music played low, blending with stories, smiles, and the kind of peace that can't be bought. It could have been anywhere, but it felt like home. Have you ever been turned away, told you didn't belong, felt small in a place that should have held you? You're not alone. But here's the truth. Every closed door can become a new one, if someone is brave enough to open it. Be that someone. Maybe it's just a coffee, or a smile, or saying, "You can sit here." Because even the smallest kindness can become someone else's turning point. Tag the person who once gave you a second chance. Or tell us about the moment you realized someone believed in you. Let's build a world where no one stands alone in the cold. A world where one cup can change everything.